Hello, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to use AGS's Resistance Management module. If you're watching this tutorial in several videos, this is the 8th video in our series of how to use AGS's OCM ERP tool for change planning and management. Today, I will be providing you with a step-by-step introduction and an overview of how to use the Change Resistance module of the OCM ERP tool. Most AGS products are Excel-based, which was a strategic decision because most people are familiar with Excel. When you open the Resistance Management module for the first time, you will land on the home page. After that, whenever you open the module, you will land on the page that was last opened before the module was closed. For today's tutorial, we will start with an overview of the module's home page. On the left of the home page will be the Organizational Resistance Management Modules Template Database button. Clicking on this button will take you to the template database where you will input key information about your target audience. We will refer to these individuals as stakeholders. Later on, as part of today's presentation, I will provide you with a detailed overview of the template database. The red button in the middle of the Business Change Resistant Modules homepage is the Analytics Dashboard button. Clicking on this button will take you to the Analytics page. During today's presentation, I'll also provide you with a detailed overview of the Analytics Dashboard page. The first yellow button is the Resistance Management Plans button. Clicking on this will take you to a page with a proactive and reactive resistance management plan. The second yellow button is a Resistance Management Guide button. Clicking on this will take you to an overview page for best resistance management practices and framework. At the very top of the home page is a link that takes you to the main dashboard of the OCM ERP tool, where you can assess all modules and templates within the tool, including this one. To the right section of the home page, you will see the menu column. The first item on this column is the Read First link. Clicking on this link will take you to the page within the module that includes some pieces of highlighted information. The second item of the Business Change Resistant Modules menu column is the link to the Instructions and Tutorials page. Clicking on the third link takes you to AGS's products page of our website where you can find other popular and frequently used change management and project management tools, templates, and samples. The fourth link on the menu column takes you to the Passwords page, where you can access the password to unlock and relock pages within this module. The next link is the Single-Use License page, which provides details on the licensing rights you have for using this module. Purchasing this module or tool involves a single user right of usage, and so giving the module or tool to multiple people to use is not permitted. Additional versions of this module or tool are needed to be purchased for other users. If you have any questions while using this module, all you have to do is click on the Questions Click to Contact AGS link on the menu column to easily draft a message to the AGS support team. The next items I would like to go over on the Change Resistant Management modules menu column are the Sample Data buttons. While using this module, you can always view sample data for both the template database and the analytics dashboard. The sample data helps give you an idea of how you can enter your own data. Clicking on any of these two buttons will take you to either of the sample data pages. We will discuss these two pages in detail later on as part of this tutorial. And that covers the high-level overview of the menu column on the module's homepage. Next, let's review the Resistance Management Module Template Database. To open the page, I'm going to click this button, which will take us to the database. When you initially open the module for the first time after purchasing it, the template database will be blank because nothing has been entered into it yet. But to illustrate what the Organizational Change Resistant Modules Template Database will look like as you start entering information, we have added a template database with sample data to the module. You can access this template with sample data in two ways. You can click the Template with Sample Data button at the top of the template database, or on the home page of the Organizational Resistance Management module, click on the blue Template Database with Sample Data button on the menu column to view the sample database. I'm going to click the template with the Sample Data button at the top. First thing I'd like to mention as we review the Change Resistant module's template database and provide sample data is that the sample data on this page is just dummy data that has been included here for illustration purposes only. You can return to the main template database to enter data anytime by clicking the Template Database tab at the top of the sample data page. Two helpful tabs that are included on both the blank template database and the sample data page are the Home tab, which will take you to the main page of the module, and the Main Dashboard tab that will take you to the main dashboard of the OCM ERP tool. You'll see these two tabs throughout the pages in each module of the end-to-end OCM ERP tool. Just remember that Home takes you to the individual module's home page, and Main Dashboard takes you out to the main tool where you can access all modules. Let's look at the first two columns in the template database. The first column, which is the Unique ID column, auto-populates with unique identifiers when you enter information about the stakeholder, such as name, job title, etc. These unique identifiers allow you to easily make reference to a particular stakeholder or to a row on the database. The second column, which is the Status column, should be used to flag the status of the resistance management activity for engaging with a stakeholder to reduce resistance. The column has a drop-down that you can select from, and the options are In Progress, Pending, Completed, TBD or To Be Determined, On Hold. Use In Progress when engagement and resistance management has begun. Use Pending for an activity that is yet to begin. Use Completed when you are completely done with your resistance management efforts. What if you are done with your first round of engagement and only plan to meet the stakeholder on a periodic basis? Then use In Progress. Completed means you are done with resistance management for the stakeholder, and there will be no further engagement unless new resistance is observed. Use TBD or To Be Determined if you have not yet determined the approach for this person. Use Hold when the resistance management efforts for a particular stakeholder have been cancelled, discontinued, indefinitely, or halted on a temporary basis. The third column, which is the Resistance Management Task column, should be used to input the activities and tasks that will be completed next. It is okay to leave the completed activities at the bottom of the cell in the Resistance Management Task column for future reference. To enter a new activity and to push down the old activity on a cell, just double-click on where you want to enter the new text and press Alt, and while pressing Alt, hit Enter once on your keyboard to add a carriage return within the cell. I'm going to go back out to the blank template for a moment by clicking the Database tab at the top to illustrate how this is done. I enter Activity 1 as my first activity. Then if I want to add another item, I click inside the cell, hold down Alt and hit Enter, and I have a second line to add Activity 2. You can also hit Enter twice to add 2 spaces. Now back to our sample data page. The fourth column, which is the Due Date column, should be used to input when a particular task needs to be completed by. The next set of 6 columns are grouped under the individual's name and contact details segment. The first column within the segment is the stakeholder type. There are a wide range of stakeholder types when it comes to stakeholders that are resisting a change, and these can vary by organization. So we are not implementing a drop-down selection menu restriction that users select from. You can simply decide on your list of set stakeholder types and use the list in the stakeholder type column. For our sample, we have used the following types of stakeholders: change agent, critical stakeholder, executive sponsor, stakeholder, supporting manager, leadership, department head, and impacted manager. You can find a detailed definition for each of these types of stakeholders used in our sample by going to the instruction and tutorial link located on the right side menu column on the Resistance Management module's homepage and downloading the PDF tutorial aid for this module. For the first name, last name, job title, email, and phone columns, enter the stakeholder's name, title, email, and phone information. Note, it is not mandatory to enter email or phone. The next three columns are used to capture organizational details. Depending on how your company is set up, you can use the division, department, and group columns to capture the specific organizational details of each stakeholder. These columns use a drop-down that is populated from the data you enter on the unique list of orgs page. Watch video number 1 in this OCM ERP tool end-to-end video tutorial for a review of that page. Depending on how your company is structured, you might not need to use all three organizational columns. For example, if your firm's organizational structure only includes division and departments, then that's all you would need to enter. Next are the geographic location columns. Use city, state, zip, postal code, and geo country columns to input geographic details of the stakeholder. These columns are optional. You do not have to fill them out if you don't want to. However, filling out these columns will enable you to easily see the number of stakeholders per each region on an analytics dashboard page. The next three columns, which are the current state, desired state, and ability to impact columns, are very critical columns that need to be populated. Use the current state column to flag the stakeholder's existing resisting state towards a project. This column has a drop-down menu that you can select from and includes the following options: yet to assess this person, low resistance, mid resistance, high resistance, no resistance, and TBD, or to be determined. Now let's go over the definition of those designations to give you a bit more background that will help you in evaluating each stakeholder for their current state. The yet to assess this person option is used if assessment hasn't started. If you've started the assessment or made contact with the stakeholder but haven't yet completed the assessment, you can use TBD, to be determined, option in the drop-down menu. Use the low resistance flag for a situation where the individual knows about the project and is somewhat resistive to the program. With a minor level of engagement, this person's resistance or concerns can be alleviated. Use the mid resistance flag for a situation where the individual knows about the project and is moderately resistive to the program. Additional engagement will need to be developed and implemented to mitigate this person's resistance to the program. Use the high resistance flag for a situation where the individual knows about the project and is extremely resistive to the program. An extended level of planning and engagement will need to be developed and implemented to mitigate this person's resistance to the program. If you started the assessment or made contact but haven't yet completed the assessment, you can use TBD, to be determined option. Now let's take a look at the desired state column. This is used to document where you need the stakeholder to move to in the future. In a perfect world, every stakeholder would end up in the no resistance level. But that's just not realistic or reasonable to expect that all stakeholders can be moved to a point where there is no resistance. For some stakeholders, for example, those that are highly resistive to stakeholders, the best that can be achieved is to move a stakeholder from a high resisting current state to a low resisting future state. The desired state column has a drop-down menu you can select from and includes the following options: yet to assess this person, low resistance, mid resistance, high resistance, no resistance, and TBD. Use yet to assess this person if assessment has not started. Use no resistance if you are able to move the person to no resistance at all. In an ideal world, this would be the desired state for all stakeholders. A low resistance desired state flag can be used for a stakeholder who currently has an extremely high or mid-level resistance, for which there is little to no possibility of moving them to a no resistance desired state. A mid-resistance desired state flag can be used for a stakeholder who currently has a high level of resistance to the change and for whom there is little to no possibility at the interim of moving them to a low resisting state. Eventually, in the long term, the goal would be to move the individual to a much lower level of resistance. A high resistance desired state flag is not an ideal level for a desired state. The goal of the resistance management is to mitigate and reduce identified resistance. Using a high resistance flag for a desired state means you either plan to move this person from a no, low, mid resistance level to a high resistance level, or there is no possibility of moving this person from a high resistance current state. Either of the two options are not ideal. If you've started your assessment but are yet to determine what the desired state should be, then you could use TBD, or to be determined option. Now let's take a look at the ability to impact column. Use the ability to impact column to flag the stakeholder's ability to impact the project. Stakeholders with a high level ability to impact the project and who are also resistant to the project will require an extended level of engagement. For these individuals, you'll probably need to involve the program sponsors or other key leaders to help engage with this person to reduce their resistance. And as an example, a high-level department manager that can cause your project timeline to be significantly or indefinitely extended due to their resistance would have a high ability to impact your project. While an employee who is a team leader that others follow may have a low ability to impact your project, being they couldn't affect the timeline. The team leader is still considered a stakeholder, being that he or she can impact attitudes of other stakeholders for resistance or support, and also because of the person's team will be impacted by the change. The ability to impact column has a drop-down menu you can select from and includes the following options: high, mid, low, TBD, to be determined. Use high for stakeholders that have a high level ability to impact the project. Use mid for stakeholders that have a mid-level ability to impact the project. Use low for stakeholders that have only a slight ability to impact the project. Use TBD or to be determined if you haven't yet determined their ability to impact. The next three columns are part of the resistance mitigation details segment and are important columns. The first of these three columns is the comments and notes on the identified resistance column. Use this column to document important notes about the stakeholder, including concerns and issues that are causing the stakeholder to resist the change. Use the resistance mitigation approach column to determine and document the approach that will be used to engage the stakeholder and address their resistance to the change. Use the resistance mitigation owner column to document the name of the individual that will be responsible for meeting the stakeholder and working to reduce the stakeholder's resistance to the change. A resistance mitigation owner can be the change management lead, the project manager, program manager, project sponsor, another key stakeholder, firm leaders, the stakeholder's manager or superior, a change champion, or anyone that has influence over the resisting stakeholder. Use the program name and project name columns to capture project-related information. In some cases, there will be multiple projects and programs, and you can identify which program or project a stakeholder is impacted by using these columns. Completing these columns is optional. Use the additional details column for inputting any miscellaneous or additional notes. And that concludes the high-level overview of the Resistance Management Template database. Note, it is not mandatory to populate all the columns shown on the template database, but it is highly recommended. Information from the database will feed into the analytics dashboard. This is what we're going to discuss next. To get to the Analytics dashboard for this project management and change resistance module, just click the Home menu at the top left-hand side of this page to be taken back to the home page. When you get to the home page, click the Analytics Dashboard button. When you initially open the Resistance Management module for the first time after purchasing it, the Analytics dashboard will be blank if nothing has been entered into the template database yet. However, as you start entering information into the template database, the respective charts, data, and metrics will start to show on the Analytics dashboard. At the top of the Analytics dashboard page is a Refresh Analytics button. Clicking this button ensures that any data that has just been entered into the template database is reflected by the Analytics dashboard. As a good rule of thumb, you want to click the Refresh Analytics button when opening this page and before reviewing your analytics. To illustrate what this Change Resistance Management Module Analytics dashboard will look like as you start populating your template database, we have included a sample analytics dashboard to the module. You can access this template with sample data in two ways. Click the Dashboard with Sample Data button at the top of the Analytics dashboard. Or, on the home page of the Resistance Management module, click the blue Analytics Dashboard with Sample Data button on the menu column. I'm going to click on the Dashboard with Sample Data button. Okay, so we are now looking at the Sample Analytics dashboard populated with our sample data. I want to point out the blue tab at the top of the page titled Analytics Dashboard. This tab takes you from the sample dashboard back to the Analytics dashboard for your data. The first analytics section we will review today is the Total Number of Stakeholder Types section. This section provides a summarized number of the different types of stakeholders and total number of stakeholders. These stakeholders are the managers, supervisors, leaders, and other individuals that currently resist a change or who may potentially resist the change. The next analytics section to focus on is the Resistance Management Task Status Updates section. This section provides a high-level status update summary of your resistance management activities and tasks. It presents the total number of stakeholders with completed status, meaning resistance management activities have been completed for these stakeholders. It also shows status for stakeholders for which resistance management engagements and activities are either in progress or pending. Next, it shows the number of stakeholders for which resistance management activities are yet to be determined, or TBD. Lastly, it shows the number of stakeholders for which resistance management activities have been placed on hold. The next analytics section below the number of stakeholders and the resistance management tasks section is the list of stakeholder types. This section provides a list of different stakeholder types as well as the total number of stakeholders per each type. To the right of the total number of stakeholder types is a bar chart, which provides a holistic view of the number of stakeholders per each type. The next analytics section is the Current Levels of Resistance Analysis section, which provides you with holistic views of the various levels of resistance. Stakeholders that have been identified as having mid or high levels of change resistance need to be engaged with a more extensive level of coordination engagement to help mitigate the factors causing them to resist the change. This view allows you to see at a glance how many of your stakeholders are at each level so you can plan accordingly. In this example, you can see that 114 stakeholders haven't been assessed yet. Out of the total number that have been assessed, 87 were identified as having a low level of resistance, 168 have a mid-level of resistance, 243 are highly resistant, while 43 do not currently resist to the change. If specific stakeholders show no resistance, why are they included in the list? Stakeholders that have been known to resist similar changes in the past or who will be impacted extensively by the change should be added to your list and tracked, even if they aren't currently resisting the change, because they make good candidates for stakeholders that might resist in the future. The next analytics section presents a summarized view of stakeholders' ability to impact the change by each category: high, mid, low, or TBD, to be determined. An example of a stakeholder that has a high ability to impact the project is a stakeholder that can cause the project to be delayed, cancelled, or brought to a halt. Such stakeholders need to be effectively engaged to ensure that any resistance from them is quickly mitigated. This view allows you to easily identify how many stakeholders can impact your program and on what level. The next analytics section is a pivot table that presents a summarized view of stakeholders' resistance level by geographic region or country. Using this view, you can quickly see which countries or regions have the highest or lowest levels of resistance. The next section is a pivot table that presents a summarized view of stakeholders' resistance level by division and geographic region or country. Using this view, you can quickly see which divisions by region or country have the highest or lowest levels of resistance. In addition to the pivot table views that were just reviewed, the final set of analytic views provide you with a unique list of datasets for stakeholder count through breakdown by geographic region or country, breakdown by division, breakdown by state, and breakdown by city. These are important views because they allow you to easily see where you have stakeholders positioned throughout your organization and in which country, division, state, or city may be missing from the list. They also allow you to see which locations or divisions had the highest or lowest number of stakeholders. This information is extremely helpful in planning travel for meetings or video conferences as needed with stakeholders in various geographic regions. And that concludes the high-level overview of the Analytics dashboard. If ever you would like to see more views or more charts, click on this button here to contact AGS team for a quote. The Resistance Management Plans is the next section that we will be discussing. We'll click the Home tab at the top left side of the page to go back to the Change Resistance module home page. Now we'll click the yellow Resistance Management Plans button. Our resistance management plans are filled with step-by-step procedures for resistance managing and mitigating resistance to a change. Best practices for identifying and mitigating resistance involve using a multi-pronged resistance management strategy, apply the reactive and proactive resistance management plans provided to effectively identify levels of resistance, as well as developing and implementing action steps. The Resistance Management Plans page was designed to be self-explanatory. You can review the plan in the Resistance module, and if you have any additional questions, please email us. The last area of the module is the Resistance Management Guide and Overview. You can access this page in two ways. Use the tab at the top of the Resistance Management Plans page which says Resistance Management Overview, or from the home page of the Change Resistant module, click the Resistance Management Guide button. This overview guide on resistance management provides you with a high-level overview of best change resistance management practices. It discusses driving factors why managers, supervisors, and executives resist a change, as well as the true cost of resistance to change in the workplace. If you're new to change and project management, this overview is a good place to start. And that covers the main areas and infrastructure of this AGS Resistance Management module. All of the information that I have provided today is documented in the instructions and tutorial page of the module. Just go to the home page by going to the top left side of the page, and in the menu column, click on the instructions and tutorial link and you'll find the job aid using this module. I I hope that this step-by-step video tutorial will be a great learning process for helping you understand how to use the resistance management module for the OCM ERP tool, as well as understanding the overall infrastructure of the module. If you have any questions or if you need additional features and capabilities to be developed for you, just send us an email and your question or request will be routed to the right contacts. Now we are going to review the next module within the OCM ERP tool, which is the Employee Training Management module. If you're watching this end-to-end OCM ERP tutorial in a series of separate videos, the video on the Training Management module is the one to watch next.